you guys? It's your girl Amber, Amber's Closet, and I'm here with a very special person. This is not only my manager, but my friend that I learned so much from. This is Dan.
Yeah.
But let's acknowledge this like beautiful hair though. Today, what are we gonna talk about?
Today we're gonna talk about identity. I'm genderqueer, non-binary, and you are not. I think the real difference in our identity is you're a Virgo and I'm a Libra.
Libra gets along with a wide variety of people. Virgo does the same, but the difference is like, except for a few. So you guys have been asking me to do this video, but then there were certain subjects that I felt like were necessary, and then I felt like I wasn't not as knowledgeable about some things as I should be. And it's crazy because just in a few months, like I've learned so much, like things that we should be aware of in the LGBTQ community, but everybody, but we gotta be specific with our community. We have to start there first, being more knowledgeable and accepting and understanding each other's differences, and then we can expect everybody else to, right? In certain spaces, I've had to, I guess, give myself pronouns, and I'm not used to that. I don't know how many times that this summer of doing panels, they're like, state your name and what you do, where people can follow you, and your pronoun. And I always skip over pronouns because I never realized until recently how important that could be in some spaces.
Yeah, definitely. Even just saying like everyone state your pronouns becomes important for everyone in the room, because you're like, oh, people actually care about my identity. And in most spaces, people don't. People never ever think to ask about your pronouns or your identity, or like, people don't make any considerations when it comes to talking about you. So just being like, my pronouns are blank, makes someone go like, what? You care? Like, that's kind of like the base level of why it even matters. But it's interesting because for me specifically, pronouns don't matter.
So let's do it. Let's talk about it. Like, what are your pronouns?
Yeah, well, my pronouns are she and he. Like, I use both. My girlfriend uses he mostly, but she uses all, like, she, he, and they. I've just never had a specific attachment to pronouns, which is why it's made me feel so uncomfortable when people are like, so is she comfortable for you? I'm like, well, like, none of them are really comfortable and none of them are not comfortable.
Right.
So it's interesting. They isn't something that I'm attached to or that makes sense for me. Like, they as a pronoun isn't like, oh my God, finally something that's not gendered. For me, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm all genders or no genders, like all at once. So she and he both make perfect sense to me. They is totally fine, but I'm not attached to any of them. So it's kind of like a weird perspective, I think. But what about you?
My pronouns, I've always said she, her, and I say daddy, just because in certain spaces when someone will use that, like poppy or daddy or whatever, it's always kind of like I see your swag. She, her, and it's because I'm a woman. Like, no matter my scale of masculinity, I feel like at the end of the day, I'm a woman, and it's probably just because of all my fights and my battles I've had to have my whole life. Because of that, I've always had to be like, no, I'm a woman. And so I kind of got used to that, and that being such a like base of, I need to fight for this, and that it's okay for a woman to be this masculine. Because sometimes people can really like, I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we talking about it? Why is it so important? I'm Amber, I'm a human being, and like that's what I want to focus on. We're often put in those different types of spaces where you have to almost do that, and like that's what's weird to me, but that's why conversations like this are so important. I don't have to go everywhere and say, hey, guess what, everybody? I'm a cisgender lesbian. We should talk about cis, and like, what does that mean?
Yeah, basically, transgender is anyone who does not identify with the binary, so like male or female or man or woman or whatever you see as the binary. And then cisgender is somebody who does identify with what they were assigned at birth. So if you were assigned female at birth and you grow up and you're like, I am female, or I'm a woman and I was assigned as a woman at birth, and like those things make sense to me, then you would identify as cis. And then if you were like, I don't identify with what I was assigned at birth, or like I kind of identify with it but not all the time, or anything kind of like outside of that's what I was assigned and that's what I agree with, is trans. Even though I identify as non-binary, I never felt like, I was like, I don't think I identify as trans. Like, that's a different community, that's a different experience. Like, I don't want to walk around and be like, I have the experience of being a trans individual, when I really don't have a lot of the same experiences, but like a non-binary identity technically is trans.
Right.
So.
I mean, I struggle with saying I'm a lesbian sometimes too, because I am a woman that dates women, but I don't like being put in categories in certain ways. But I know that the massive I, that's how they're always gonna categorize me, and that's how they're gonna be able to like digest who I am as a person. And so I often just let that go. If ever I can be in a different space where I can really explain myself or me as a person, I'm just like, I'm a woman that happens to date women. At the end of the day, I've always just wanted to say I'm an androgynous woman that can flip between my masculinity and femininity, and that is really important to me that I can do that. And that's where we are like the same.
Yeah, I know. That's what's so interesting. But I also was never comfortable with femininity until I was identifying as genderqueer and until I was really confident in my masculinity. My femininity kind of comes out in like a flamboyant masculine way more than like a femme pretty girl way. Like, I don't know what the right like language is or whatever, please don't be mad at me. But now that I am really confident in being masculine, I can be femme. But when I was growing up and my mom wanted me to wear dresses, it made me so uncomfortable. But the same way, it made me uncomfortable to wear bow ties. Like, I didn't like either extreme, and so it wasn't until androgyny was a big pathway for me to understand, like, you don't have to be one or the other. And then now being like, oh, I could be one or the other if I really wanted to be, but I don't want to be. It just doesn't feel like I was assigned female at birth, I grew up a woman, and when I'm feminine, it's because I am like accepting the womany female person. It's just
doing what you feel like you want to do that day. It shouldn't have to be a derivative of what your gender is. Like what you think that is. Like, it's just you expressing yourself and what you feel comfortable for that day. Like, that's what I love about how you identify, because we're like the same.
And also, like, we are both dating people who their identities have nothing to do with who we are.
Right. Oh my God. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this conversation. You don't have to like both identify the same way to make a relationship work. My girlfriend is straight and was straight as hell, and yours?
My girlfriend is lesbian.
But calls you her boyfriend.
Yeah.
So, and my girlfriend does too, and I like it.
I know, I
like when she's like, but you're my man. I'm like, yeah, girl, I am your man.
I know, seriously, same.
And I like saying that to you guys. I'm your older brother, your older sister, you know, whatever.
Yeah, somebody called me fairy godbrother the other day, and I was like, that's exactly what I am.
Oh, that's perfect.
I identify as fairy godbrother.
Make sure you follow Dan. You have a clothing line.
I do, yeah. I have a gender neutral clothing brand, and it's like, I have some stuff that's vintage, and then also I represent a bunch of brands, so it's like a marketplace for Black owned, non-binary owned, queer owned brands, like all over the place, which is super fun.
So beautiful.
Yeah, we have androgynous swimwear, dress shoes that fit smaller feet, like, you know, masculine dress shoes for smaller feet, like all kinds of cool shit. And we style everything androgynous, masculine, and feminine, so you can see, like, no matter what the item of clothing, how it would look in any kind of style, which is because clothing is inherently gender neutral. It wouldn't be that hard for every clothing brand to just change themselves a tiny bit to be gender neutral. Personally, I like confusing people. I especially like confusing men because there are so many cis hetero dudes that just like know everything about the world around them and are
they think
they think. And so especially when I'm with my friend Black Man White Baby, who's an artist that everyone should look up, because he's this like huge, really muscly black man, and I'm like this really confusing small white thing. And so he'll be introducing me to someone and he'll be like, this is Dan, and they'll be like, Dana, and then he'll be like, Dan, and they're like, oh, Dan. Okay.
I like doing that to people. I like shocking people.
Yeah.
And being a stereotype breaker for them, because if they do have some confusion, and if they have the balls enough to come and like ask me questions, I love being that for them. But then I also, in certain situations, I can tell that it's not the right time to educate you.
You shouldn't have to do that for anybody.
I love it though.
Literally go
if there's gonna be people out there in the world to answer some questions, it should be us though.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I love educating people too, and I can also tell pretty quickly when they're not there to be educated, they're just there to give you shit. And that's when you know, like, okay, bye. Bye.
At the end of all this, I hope that we helped educate you guys a little bit on what it means for identity and how you feel as a person, because a lot of people will assume that because I'm a masculine woman that I want to be a man. I love being a woman, and I love being able to straddle the line with my masculine and feminine. Like, that's really important to me. At the end of the day, what you learn from both of us sitting here is like, we may be very different with how we identify, but we have a lot more in common. And that's what I really will always want to put out to people. No matter our backgrounds or how we feel about each other, or how we raise, there's more that connect us then disconnect us. And I think that that's really important for advancing us as human beings and like making this world a better place.
I agree.
So make sure you follow Dan, you feel me? Check out the clothing line, this is the Instagram. You'll probably see Dan in some vlogs and stuff.
Yeah.
Dan.
Sick.
And if you guys have any questions for anything that we discussed in this video, make sure you guys put it in the comments below and I'm gonna try to get to them. Maybe Dan can come through one time and help you guys too. If not, we'll do a podcast in the future.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right, I love you guys so much. Stay amazing, stay proud, stay woke.
Yeah.
$1 million every time you have sex, but you faint.
But I faint?
You faint afterward.
That's fine, I'll faint. Don't I do that anyways?
Pretty much. Do you want to say bye?
Oh. Bye.